Commander Theo Everett remained motionless as Admiral Lell delivered the verdict that would end her career. There was no explanation given. No formal hearing, just a blunt, irreversible order that abruptly terminated her 15 years of distinguished service. The silence among the crew was deafening as she was quietly escorted from the massive aircraft carrier. She carried nothing but a small duffel bag and a single unnamed medal. No one dared to speak of Deepwater Station. Questions remained unasked, though they lingered in the eyes of the sailors. Less than a day later, a nuclear submarine broke the surface in restricted waters, violating every rule and protocol. Its commanding officer had only one condition: if this story of buried secrets and courageous defiance moves you, consider subscribing to our channel for more untold stories of individuals who choose to stand alone when the moment demands it. Commander Everett stood on the flight deck of the USS Valiant, the temps of the ocean thick in the air, as the carrier sliced through the South China Sea with deliberate momentum. Behind it, the ship's powerful wake carved a white trail through the dark waters. The early morning flight operations were already in full swing. Aircraft crews, wearing their color-coded vests, moved in practiced synchronization. F-35 jets were being readied for patrol, their engines roaring to life. As Everett walked the deck, she observed a group of junior officers abruptly fall silent upon noticing her approach. Their conversation cut off too sharply to be anything but intentional. She had noticed this strange behavior over the last 3 days, conversations dying out the moment she came near. Whispers passed in corners, sideways glances. A rumor was spreading, and somehow, she had become the nucleus of it. Lieutenant Commander Rafferty intercepted her, his usual easy manner replaced by a strict formality. "Commander," he said, "Admiral Lell has just landed. He's asking for you in the flag briefing room immediately." Everett's brow furrowed slightly. Lell wasn't expected, and visits from 7th Fleet Command without prior notice were almost always ominous. "Did he say what it was about, XO?" she asked. "No, ma'am," Rafferty replied, "but he's not alone. He brought 2 officers from Naval Intelligence." A subtle tension tightened her chest, though her expression remained composed. She had known this day might come. After 8 long years of silence, it seemed the ghosts of the past had finally caught up. "Thank you, Rafferty. You have the deck," she said crisply. As she moved through the winding passageways of the carrier, memories intruded. The USS Paragrin's control room under emergency lighting, alarms blaring, her fingers reaching for a secure communications system. Captain Zephyr Reed's steady voice echoed in her mind, delivering an order that could destroy both their careers if it ever surfaced. Outside the briefing room, 2 unfamiliar Marines stood guard. They saluted wordlessly and opened the door. Inside, Admiral Lell stood at the window, his back turned. The 2 intelligence officers sat at the table with blank expressions. "Commander Everett," Lell said, still looking out to sea. "Thank you for coming quickly." "Sir," she replied, standing tall. Lell turned at last, his weathered face unreadable. "Commander, you are hereby relieved of duty, effective immediately." The words landed like a silent explosion. She had braced for this possibility, but hearing it out loud, struck with a force that shook her to the core. Still, she kept her posture unshaken. "May I ask the reason, Admiral?" she inquired. "You may not," Lell answered. His tone offered no room for negotiation. "Gather only your personal effects. You are restricted from accessing systems, or speaking to any crew member about this. These officers will escort you off the ship." Her mind raced. Had someone uncovered her connection to Deepwater Station? Had the incident files been unsealed? Or was something else happening? "I understand, sir," she said calmly. Lell's face showed something fleeting, perhaps regret, but the moment passed, and his authoritative demeanor returned. "That will be all, Commander." The walk to her quarters felt surreal. Sailors moved aside. Conversations went quiet. Some avoided her gaze. Others watched openly. Among them, a few of the long-serving enlisted men gave subtle nods, silent tokens of respect, not easily understood by outsiders. Inner cabin. She packed with quiet efficiency. A few sets of clothes, personal items, and a small carved box holding letters from her grandfather. She removed the insignia pins from her uniform with great care and laid them neatly on her desk. Her medals would remain behind, except one, a small, nameless medal she discreetly slipped into her pocket. It was a small defiance, no one would likely notice. She looked at the photo tucked into the mirror frame. 4 officers standing aboard a submarine. Each wore an unrecognizable patch. The Paragrin crew during the deep water operation. Reed Voss, Chen, herself. She slid the photo into a worn copy of The Hunt for Red October, a personal joke only she would get. As the intelligence officers escorted her from the ship, the stares and murmurs followed her like a storm. Still, she kept her eyes ahead and paced steady. She would not let them see her falter. By the time she reached the gangway, she had changed into civilian clothing. She paused for a moment. The massive carrier sprawled behind her, buzzing with life. It had been her world for nearly a decade. Now, it was over. Rain began to fall. A soft drizzle, but growing. A young sailor approached the gangway, checking equipment. As he leaned closer, he whispered, "Is it true, what they say about Deepwater Station?" Everett didn't reply. She didn't even flinch. She just continued down the gangway as the drizzle became a steady rainfall. 16 hours later, Naval Base Yokosuka was a hive of activity. In a secure room, intelligence officers questioned crew members from the Valiant. "Commander Everett never spoke about her previous assignments with you," an agent asked Rafferty, who looked more irritated than nervous. "As I've said, she was professional, focused. 15 years of impeccable service. Decorated twice. Whatever you think she's done, you're mistaken." "We'll determine that," the officer said flatly. "Did she ever mention a Captain Zephyr Reed or something called Operation Deadwater?" Rafferty frowned. "No, never heard of either. Look, the crew's confused. You can't yank a senior officer out without explanation and expect no fallout. That'll be all, Lieutenant Commander. You're dismissed." Elsewhere in the base, an intelligence technician picked up a strange signal in the comm center. "Sir," she said, adjusting her headset. "Encrypted transmission, Cold War protocol. Coming from a submarine response coming from a coastal station. Can you decrypt it?" "Not fully, but I caught references to dead water and a name read." The watch officer stiffened. "Log it. Send it to Admiral Chen. No one else." At that very moment, Admiral Lell received word that the USS Paragrin had missed its check-in. Now designated potentially compromised, the sub was unaccounted for. The weight of history crashed down on ULA 8 years ago. He had read the report's classified files that described what truly occurred at Deepwater Station. Everett and Reed were at the heart of it. If the truth emerged, the chain of command might unravel entirely. "Find Everett," Lell barked, immediately. But Everett had already vanished. In a quiet village along the coast, 40 miles from Yokosuka, she sat in a sparse room above a fish market. On the table sat a crackling, shortwave radio. "Trench 7 Echo. Confirm receipt." The radio sputtered. She picked up the mic. "Confirmed Paragrin, Valiant compromised. Moving to contingency, understood," came the voice. "Weather shows surfacing conditions favorable tomorrow, 0700. Prepare accordingly." As the transmission ended, Everett stared out the window. At the sea beyond, 8 years of silence, of carrying a truth no one could speak. Tomorrow, that silence would be broken. Tomorrow, the Paragrin would surface breaking every rule, and the world would finally learn what Deepwater Station really was. By dawn, the skies over the Pacific had darkened. A storm front loomed on the horizon, and winds swept through the narrow coastline where Commander Everett stood cloaked in a rainproof jacket. Below, the sea churned with quiet tension, an appropriate mirror of what was about to unfold. In the early hours, a classified satellite pinged movement beneath the surface. An unregistered vessel was rising rapidly, too rapidly. Deep beneath the sea, the USS Paragrin, long presumed decommissioned, angled toward the surface like a leviathan awakened from the depths. Every sonar buoy across the region went into alert mode. Joint commands in Pearl Harbor, Yokosuka, and Diego Garcia lit up with warnings. But only a select few knew the truth that the Paragrin had never been destroyed. Only buried in bureaucratic silence after Operation Deadwater. Within the hidden command bunker at the Pentagon, a red phone rang. On the other end was Admiral Lell. His voice was clipped. "It's happening," he said. The Chief of Naval Operations cursed under his breath. "Do we have eyes on Everett?" "No. She's vanished." She knew this day would come. Back on the coast, Everett paced slowly, counting seconds in her head. She held a compact radio in her hand, tuned to a pre-agreed frequency. At precisely 0700 hours, the silence was shattered by a deep, resonant horn. The Paragrin broke the surface like a black specter, water streaming from its hull. From the cliffs, Everett raised a small signal flare and fired it into the air. Red, then blue, then red again. Through binoculars, the Paragrin's conning tower opened. A man emerged, weathered but unmistakable. Captain Zephyr Reed, alive and in full uniform. He scanned the coastline, then nodded once, solemnly. On naval channels across the Pacific, a broadcast began transmitting, automated, encrypted, and undeniable. "This is Captain Zephyr Reed, of the USS Paragrin. We have surfaced under emergency wartime protocol, in accordance with Navy Directive 47 Delta, last activated during the Cold War. We carry first-hand evidence and living testimony concerning Operation Deadwater, Deepwater Station, and the biological threat buried beneath it. This is not a defection. This is not rebellion. This is truth." The transmission was caught by civilian radio operators. Within minutes, clips were posted online. Reddit threads exploded. #Paragrin and #Operation Deadwater trended within an hour. Inside the White House Situation Room, advisors scrambled to contain the narrative. But it was too late. A truth once set loose cannot be caged again. In the deep-sea naval archives, a long classified file was flagged as leaked, its contents unspeakable. Deepwater Station had not been a weapons depot, as the public had been led to believe. It had been a test seat, a containment chamber for a recovered extraterrestrial vessel discovered during a joint U.S. Japanese trench expedition. But something had gone wrong. Communication was lost. The station went dark. Only 4 people survived, that mission. Everett, Reed, Chen, and ID, one other whose identity had been redacted in every file. Everett returned to Tokyo under a fake identity and watched as her name was quietly scrubbed from Navy databases. But she had already done her part. She had brought the Paragrin back into the light, and with it, the truth. In a remote cabin, far from the capital, Captain Zephyr Reed met her with a simple nod. No words, just mutual understanding. They both knew this wasn't the end, only the beginning, because Deepwater Station was still out there, and it was waking up. If you were moved by this story of courage, silence, and truth long buried beneath the waves, subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon. We tell the stories no one else dares to, because some truths are too important to be forgotten.